This is Real World Audio, and today this is the time to decode the matrix. I'm giving you a very important piece of the audio soup or the audio advice. And this critical subject that we will decode today is, can a cable improve the sound? So let's look at it. And you always read on reviews that I have swapped in this so-and-so cable and the sound has been improved tremendously. And then you notice that there are other people who are saying that, oh, this is impossible. How can a short piece of cable improve the sound, especially power cords? How can a 6 feet long power cord improve the sound when you have 20 feet junk wire in your house in front of that? And however, this is the thinking in the matrix, and this is not how audio works. Your components do not have the potential to improve the sound. Everything compromises the sound, takes away from it. And when you are using higher quality components, you have less and less compromise. So people think that if you improve a component, then you add more to the sound, you add more detail, you add bass. However, this is not true, because you cannot add information to the sound. When you listen to reproduced music, all you can get is what is on the recording. You can't add anything more to that. If you do so, it will be always a coloration, EQing, processing, fabrication. It will make it more and more artificial, more and more mechanical. So let's look at what is really happening outside the matrix. We have our recording material, be it vinyl or digital, and that is like money in the bank. Or you can count your coins. It's like having 100 gold coins contained in your recording. If it's a better recording, you have more coins. If it's a poorer recording, you have less coins to start with. And then you have your reproduction machine, which might be a CD player or turntable, that reads out the source material, and when it does so, you lose a bunch of coins because there is a lot of information that is left out in the process. And then you go through with your amplifier, you lose again, through your loudspeaker you lose again, and the very end, what you hear is just a mere fraction of what is contained in your music source. So this is what is happening in all of our audio systems. We have a tremendous attrition happening, tremendous loss of information. And there is what common sense say. There is a 6 foot long junk speaker cable. How can a small binding post make a difference? It cannot be 2 meters of junk wire, because you can read many cases that a lot of people obsess about their connectors. But how can a tiny connector matter when you have a much longer piece of metal which is junk or whatnot? And this is also built on the assumption that a connector can only make a difference when the cable is top notch. However, that's not the truth, because in an audio system, every single step when the signal jumps through another stage, another media, you have information lost. So if it does make a difference whether you lose information on your binding post or you don't lose information, regardless of the quality of that cable that feeds it. So what are the stages, what are the steps where the signal is being lost, where you're losing your coins or marbles? Each gain stage, which means amplification stage, when either the voltage or the current is amplified, or maybe both of them are amplified. Each feedback loop is also a stage or a step where information is lost. And now many of you will say, oh, feedback is essential to keep the frequency bandwidth, to keep the dynamic capacity and power capacity of the amplifier. And that's true. Feedback does help with the transfer efficiency, but it does so by erasing low-level information. So during feedback, lowest level information is always lost. You are knocking out rungs from the ladder. And it depends on your system, how the feedback loop impacts it. It might give a positive influence because your system might not be competent enough to read out that low-level information which is being lost. So if you leave out the feedback in that specific system, you will not hear much difference. But if your system has great transfer function, so all the marbles are not lost, but you are able to keep a bunch of your coins, then that loss will be very noticeable, whether you lose that low-level information or not. Each piece of wire is also a signal transition step. Even looking deeper, each metal junction, so when the electron has to jump from one media to the other, that is an opportunity to lose a signal. So basically each solder joint or the different metals or surfaces between your like transistor leads to the transistors, dope silicon body, and or within a vacuum tube jumping from the cathode through to the anode. So all of these are steps which have potential where you can lose information. Each resistor is a big step which has potential to take away from the information capacity. Each capacitor, each transformer, your speaker driver, the speaker driver's air interface, how it can connect to the air, which is defined by your room acoustics, that also defines whether information is lost or not. So basically, decoding the matrix, each component, what they can do is either take away detail level or alter and change those details, but they cannot generate additional detail. They can either change what is there or take away from what is there. And in every case, basically, both of these are happening. There's erasing happening and there's a change happening. And a good component is a good component that does very little of both processes. So basically, circling back to that speaker cable versus binding post question, what can that tiny binding post make? What's the difference? And the difference is loss prevention. So if you have a junk binding post, it will add its coloration to the sound, it will lose a lot of low-level information, and that's because in the junk binding post there are poor quality metals used. It's a bunch of different metals on top of each other, and each transition basically has its own effect, its own change in the potential of the electrons, because the electrons, they do not travel through your metals, but they travel through as though traveling in musical chairs. So basically, one atom gets an electron knocked off, and that electron knocks off the electron of the next atom, and basically electron by electron is jumping. So it's not the same electron going through the process. It's like millions of electrons. And if you are changing the situation up, so you are using various metals, various conductors, and keep on altering them, you are also messing up with the potential of those electrons. Each of the atoms have different electronegativity, which means they want to hold on to that atom to a greater or lesser degree. And if it was just DC current, so you would be running a heater, then all of these considerations would be null and void. But because we are using AC signals, all of these transitions do affect how alternating current propagates. So basically, when you have a junk binding post versus good binding post, the difference is that with the good binding post, you have a little less degradation in the overall information content, so that's why you can hear more. So thank you for tuning in. I hope this has been instructive for everyone. It gave you new ideas, and have fun on your audio journey. Please like, subscribe, tell your friends. Bye bye.